Time for another edition of ACC Baseball Etc, presented as always by our good friends at Pitch Logic. It's the system used by players, coaches, scouts, and instructors at all levels of play, from youth leagues to the big leagues. The easy-to-use and affordable technology makes the platform accessible to every player at every level. All the metrics and features used at the highest level. See pitchlogic.com for more information. Another of our preseasoning head coach conversations as we ramp up to opening day in college baseball and in the ACC. I'm Daron Vaught, happy to be joined by Scott Forbes, the head man for the North Carolina Tar Heels, the Diamond Heels as they are. Scott, good to see you. I tell everybody I love this time of year because it's a chance to catch up with some people that I haven't seen maybe since the summer on the recruiting trail or just a quick touch in the fall. With the programs, but this is a signal to me that it's almost here, and I nothing excites me more. So good to see you. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you for having me. It is an exciting time. It's a lot different having this interview now than it is in the fall, just from the standpoint of the window, and we're all starting the same date, February 14th, and that date is going to get here quickly.
No doubt. Let me ask you this. Now, as a head coach who has led a team to the College World Series, you walk into the office these days. Do you feel different as a head coach?
Absolutely not. No, heck no. It's the same thing. I was just telling you, our whole motto here is to be process oriented, but to also not take a day for granted. You get older. I'm not old by any means. Well, a lot of people, our players think I'm old, I'm sure. But, our staff is unbelievable. We have so much fun every single day. But no, I don't feel any different at all. If anything, I just continue to pinch myself when I come in here and sit in this office, because it's still very humbling that I'm the head coach here.
I knew the answer to that before I asked.
Yeah.
So Omaha team, such a great season last year, honestly, an exciting team to watch. I'm curious because a lot of the talk with your club is going to be what left, what is outgoing. Vance Honeycutt. I know Alberto Osuna is playing at Tampa now, which is awesome for him. Just a bevy of guys that were big production guys in the lineup, right? I'm curious, as it starts well before they leave, I know, Scott, how do you guys, after the journey is done and you guys are in Omaha and it's over and it's like, okay, these guys are moving on, whether it be via the draft or whatever, how do you guys approach, okay, now we got to move on and maybe not replace them, right? Because you can't replace a Vance Honeycutt and
right.
Others, right? They're their own guys, a Parks Harbor, et cetera, et cetera. What's the evaluation of your roster look like at the start of, and this can, I think, apply to every offseason, right? Right then and there, what's it look like, the process that your coaching staff goes through to evaluate the roster and say, okay, we need to hit the portal for a pitcher, a first baseman, whatever.
Yeah, we meet every day as a staff. We're going to meet right after this at 9:00. And we talk about the most important thing we do besides our current players is recruiting, period. It has to be. So your mind has to always be thinking about the next team. You got to be careful getting too far ahead, especially in today's landscape with the transfer portal. But we're talking every single morning about, okay, anything new, even though it may not be at the time. March 1st sitting here, we can't go out and evaluate, but constantly checking the portal, making sure that we're staying on top of, because heck, you got new rulings every day. The Vanderbilt quarterback, you just said Alberto Osuna. Is he playing at Tampa this spring? Well, I think he is. Or is he going to come back and play at UNC? Who the heck, it's a daily process. But, we started ahead last year, and we knew, we knew we were losing Parks Harbor. You knew we were losing Anthony D'Onofrio, and we pretty much knew we were losing Vance Honeycutt. And we hoped that Casey Cook would have the type of year where we would potentially lose him. You don't want your guys to not have great years and not get drafted high. So you have to plan for that. And like you said, you're realistic, and you're not going to get that guy potentially that's the best center fielder defensively and all around to potentially have ever played that position. I mean, let's just be honest. And I know I coached him, but it's an elite player. But we knew, okay, what we're going to have to go get, and we targeted that hard in the portal. We felt like we liked the guys that we got to supplement who returned. And you're never really sure in college baseball who's going to return. Our retention here has been extremely good, but I'm talking about with the draft. You might have some guys like Aiden Houtt that get drafted that decide to come back, or you have a guy like Dalton Pence that gets drafted and it comes down to the last possible minute and he ends up signing, which was awesome for him. But you have to plan aggressively for losing players to the draft, and you try to hit that portal right away, and you're working in Omaha, and you just have to manage it all. But we're doing the same thing right now, Daron. I mean, we're working on next year's team, because if you look at this year's team, it's an older veteran group that a lot are going to be gone again.
Yeah. Speaking of the coaching staff, you re-added a Scott Jackson to the coaching staff there. Love that. He and I caught up on this very show a few weeks ago, so I'm pumped to see him back in our league and back home, as we said, there in Chapel Hill. I want to ask you about the retention from maybe a different angle than you were just describing before we get into this year's team. In observing other programs, Scott, it strikes me that your program just has a knack for pulling in guys who, and I think we've talked about this at least in part before, a lot of the guys you guys bring in don't just want to be college baseball players at the time that you're recruiting them. They want to be college baseball players at the University of North Carolina. And it's just it's an interesting thing to observe in this day and age. I think for most successful high school players, it's okay. I want to go play college. I don't know where that's going to be, but I'm open to whatever. We've talked about the story of Zach Gallen, the determination to not just be a college baseball pitcher, but to pitch as a Tar Heel, and him ultimately getting there. And you've had similar guys, right? I think this is the case for Luke Stevenson. I think it was the case for Vance Honeycutt. Like you've brought in guys successfully that they don't just want to play college baseball. They want to play college baseball for your team and that program. And that has led to, you guys have lost players to the portal, sure, but it seems like you've lost way fewer than other successful programs have. Am I onto something with that?
Daron, one thing I have learned as a coach is we have enough on our plate daily. So I really don't know, what other teams and how many they've lost unless I see them in the portal and we want to go after them.
Right.
Type of thing. What's unique about North Carolina is, now, I'm realistic, so let me start with that. NIL is a factor. It can benefit your players, and we want it to benefit our players. We want our players to benefit from it, and we work really, really hard, and we have unbelievable support to make that possible. Now, we don't know what's coming for sure, but we know revenue share is coming. We know a court case is coming in April, but it's still going to be there. It needs to be a part of your program. So, you have to take care of your players, and our players know that when they choose University of North Carolina. With that being said, we are targeting the most talented players in the country for sure, but we're upfront and honest. And I am, at least as the head coach, and I say if NIL is the number one factor, if it is number one over the team winning, the team concept first, and going to an unbelievable school that can potentially set you up extremely well with a great degree to get a really good job, because everybody's going to have to get a job except the ones that maybe they still have a job in the big leagues, but if they're fortunate enough to reach free agency. But we're just upfront and honest and in our recruiting, and you have to walk away sometimes. It's hard to do. You don't want to walk away from that ultra talented player, but there are a lot of ultra talented players that have been raised the right way, that understand, like, okay, if I go to the University of North Carolina, winning is going to be first. The history of the program, we do talk about that. Like, all right, you're going to get better. We feel like we can help you maximize your potential because, of course, you want to get drafted. Of course, you want to play in the big leagues, and that's part of our job. And we don't take that lightly. But if you think about it, if you go to a school, you work really, really hard. You get called into the school. You love the school. You love where you are. You're getting better. You play well. Therefore, you help your team play well. It all falls into line, but it doesn't work if you don't keep the team first and that concept first because you're playing a team sport. And I think those teams suffer. We've all had those teams. And that was why we were so successful last year when you have a superstar like Vance Honeycutt that only cares about winning and knows, yes, I'm going to get drafted. Yes, I want to play in the big leagues. That will happen. And we've had that all the way back. My first year walking in here, those guys like Miller and Bard, I mean, so talented. But it was so cool for me to see what they cared about most. And there's no coincidence that they've had the success they've had. So, and I think the great thing about what I enjoy the most about being a head coach is you do get to decide what the culture's like and what the standards are like. And you get to set that, and hopefully players that are here, you get to set it with who you hire, the staff that you have. And we don't take that lightly, and we hope that the players that are here feel like they are generally cared about, they're loved. We care about their lives. You can't play them all. You just can't. Our job once the game starts is to play the best players and pitch the best pitchers. But there's a lot more to our program than just that. And I like to think that has a big part in why guys want to stay at the University of North Carolina.
Yeah.
And we've had some history of winning, which was established way back with great teams, and because winning is way more fun than not winning.
No doubt. Yeah. Man, I love witnessing that alignment between program and player. And I was told long ago as a young man that when facing adversity, when trying to accomplish something, really in all aspects of life, sense of self is very important as an individual. And it's great that the players have that and are aware enough of themselves and their own games and their own intentions to understand that alignment with the program. I think it's also important that as a program, if we may personify it for a second, like the program has a great sense of self. You mentioned walking away in certain cases where it's a talented player, but it might just not be a fit. So I love hearing you talk about that, because again, it's just in my dealings with all the programs in the ACC, other college programs, that is something that is especially unique to the Tar Heels baseball team.
Well, you've heard it a lot, and there's so many great coaches. I'm a huge Nick Saban fan. I would think most coaches should be with what he's done, but he talks very specifically about being a transformational coach instead of a transactional coach. And I think we've all been guilty of being transactional coaches. I sure have, especially my younger days. But when you really concentrate as a staff, we challenge each other to ask ourselves, why are we here coaching? And you work hard to be a transformational coach where hopefully these guys, when they leave here, they're just better in every area. Obviously, we want them to be better in baseball. And your hope is that, if you have some guys, you're going to have some guys go somewhere else and play. But you want that to be because they just can't get on the field. We were talking about in the team meeting yesterday, this is big boy country. This is the highest level of college baseball you can play. And you can work as hard as you can. And sometimes, you're a role player and you don't get on the field, you don't pitch, or you have to go somewhere else to be successful. And there are no hard feelings there when that is the case. In my hope and prayers that when guys do leave, that they still know, like, hey, like those coaches, they cared about me as a person. And I just, the baseball side, you have to be able to separate it. I've been coaching long enough to know that can't make everybody happy. And my job once the game starts is to put the best guys out there to help us win.
Let's talk about the guys for this upcoming spring. It was a remarkable job by your team to overcome a couple of front end of the rotation injuries Jake Knapp, Folger Boaz, both ultimately out for their seasons. Knapp, of course, sooner than Boaz. Those guys back? Is that going to be a 100% thing, or are they going to both be kind of like easing their way in as we begin this season?
Yeah, well, you can see the smile that just came to my face. They're both back. Folger's farther along than Jake. Folger's good to go. He had the bracing. Very similar, the same surgery that Max Carlson had, that Dalton Pence had.
Yeah.
He had it about the same time that Carlson had it. I just don't believe in excuses. We talk about it all the time. It's old Jocko saying, they're lies. But when Jake went down, we had a little bit of time to like, it was before the season, so we knew we weren't going to have Jake. When we lost Folger, it was like, okay, how are we going to withstand this, and can we overcome it? And that's just a credit to our players, because as the head coach, I thought, and our staff was like, this is going to be difficult to overcome, and guys stepped up. But to have those guys back is just unbelievable. Not just because they're so talented. Jake's going to be ready too. If it was up to Jake, Jake was ready today. Yeah. Jake is older. He came to my office and said, I don't want, you'll love this. He said, I don't want a pitch count if I'm a starter. And I don't want you to tell me how many days rest I need if I'm a reliever. How many guys do that in today's world? Here's a prospect, gigantic kid. I tell him, I was like, man, if you went over the football and you got on a meal plan, you could be an offensive lineman. That's how big he is.
Yeah.
But he looks great. He's throwing a ton of strikes in his bullpens. According to Jake, he's getting ready to be at a year for the full repair, early February. And he said that's plenty of time and that he's going to be ready to go February the 14th. Now, he looks like he is ready. So we'll see. But we're excited to have them back. And there's more to it than just their talent. To see them work, to see how hard they've worked since the day they got hurt and injured to where they are now. Again, it's a credit to them. They're ready because of their work ethic.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you guys are positioned well to ease them up to speed as much or as little as you need to as well, but partially because of, look, Jason DeCaro had a breakout season as the de facto number 2 starter and then the de facto ace ultimately all the way through a trip to Omaha. So I would assume he kind of figures to be your Friday starter at the open of the season. I mean, again,
that's a good assumption.
Yeah. Yeah. So then after that, my understanding is you got a couple of breakout candidates for that starting role again in Olin Johnson and Kyle Percival. So, to whatever degree you want to elaborate, do you guys feel pretty comfortable in the event that you don't have Jake, you don't have Folger at the start of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm ever comfortable
sure.
with my personality, but I'm definitely pretty confident in our pitching staff. Coach Gaines and Coach Howell, talking about being lucky. I remind myself about our staff, and how awesome they are and how good of coaches they are and good people, and how much I need to just step back at times and just trust what they're doing and stay the heck out of it. But they have options. We have options. We have depth, and guys have improved. So they're really pushing each other. Yes, Jason, right now, if we start today, he'd start on Friday. But, there are guys that also want to pitch on Friday. And they are pushing Jason DeCaro. It's not like Jason DeCaro, the gap is that big in this pitching staff. A guy like Aiden Houck came back, who you saw some flashes that were really good last year. And you got Knapp, you got Boaz, you got Percival, you got Olin Johnson. So there's a good battle going on. We have some other guys that have improved, and we got some experience returning, like you got the Padgett, Matthias, and Percival, all those guys that pitched in big games. And there's some freshmen that are ultra talented. We have to figure out what role they're going to be in. But we started a freshman last year on Friday, and our guys know every season's new. Yeah, you have done it. But, we rolled Alex White out there on Saturday in 2007 on a really, really good team because he deserved it. So it's going to be a battle in the preseason. I'm excited to watch it unfold for sure.
I love it. So that covers potentially a starting rotation for you guys. You talked about Mateus and Padgett and Poston, and Boston Flannery is back and potentially could have a breakout. I see it, a ton of other names on here that are unfamiliar to North Carolina's program, but guys I know are capable. It feels like a pretty deep pitching staff. If I may, I'm going to pivot to the lineup now, though, because again, this is where
take your time, Daron. I can. We're good. We're playing
okay.
Good.
All right. This is the place where, again, given how I sort of set everything up here with the outgoing players, the lineup is where there is the most to, using my air quotes here for those listening and not watching, replace. You're not going to replace what was there, but you're trying to replace at least the production, right? And I expect a big second year out of Gavin Gallagher. We all know Luke Stevenson and what he's capable of as the catcher and assumedly the everyday guy at that position. And how else do you see that taking shape, the lineup?
Yeah, we returned, thankfully, Jackson Vanderbrake getting the appeal and being able to play was a big deal, not just for on the field, but for our locker room. Never seen him look this good, physical, weighing in at 205, as strong as he's been. He's an all-ACC player that got off to a rough start. Gavin hopped in and it just kind of happened that way, but he still played for us, had a lot of at-bats. And you look at 2 years, he's got a lot of experience under his belt, finished strong in Omaha. We got Hunter Stokely back, who had the red shirt last year, which was a blow to us. That big left-handed bat broke his hand, but a Gold Glover at first too, which is underappreciated. He can really defend. I think he's capable of hitting 15 home runs. At the end of the day, the power is the one thing that's like, okay, we're probably not going to replace that. You got Parks Harbor, Alberto Osuna, Vance Honeycutt, Casey Cook, and then D'Onofrio could leave the yard at any time. But we do feel like the guys we got off the portal, Sam Angelo's as good of a hitter we've had come in here in a long time. He's older. He's physical. The best hitter in Division III baseball the last 2 years. And those guys can play. You look at Madera last year. You look at the catcher for, I think it's Ferentz at Virginia last year, hit like 18. So we could have a veteran infield with Gavin, Madera, Vanderbrake, Stokely. And then you got Angelo, who also can play first base. You got Luke, who is going to, in my opinion, the best catcher in the country, has a chance to be an extremely high draft pick, who's gotten better. I mean, he was good last year, but you see him and you look at his body, his work ethic, he looks as good as I've ever seen him. We have more, even more catching depth this year with the transfer from Liberty that played every day. That was like DeCaro for them last year, that went a year early. He's physical. He can really hit. We got to find a way to get him in there, but it allows Luke to not catch every inning of every game. And the outfield was, what we lost, obviously. You lost left, center, and right. We got an unbelievable center field, 2 center fielders, really, off the portal that I've been so excited about. Kane Kepley from Liberty. He's just a heck of a player. And he's as good a center fielder as you'll find, in my opinion. Been doing this a long time, probably in Division I baseball. And even with that being said, he's not going to get to some balls that Van's got to. But you got Tyson Bass, who is neat for me. He can, it's not just neat for me because he came from North Carolina Wesleyan, but he was their version of Vance Honeycutt at that level. He hit 20 plus home runs every year, steals bases, has speed. And again, this is his 5th year playing college baseball. And then Rom Kellis has kind of moved to that forefront to potentially play left, a junior college transfer that can really hit. He can also catch, gives us more depth. And there's some other guys that are pushing. Perry Hargett is a really electric player, can play everywhere. Probably wouldn't play him as short, but he just has that knack for getting on the field. We have some older returners. So I think the lineup can cause some problems for some opponents, and that's how I look at it. We might have to play the game a little bit different at times, but I think we have a little more power than the outside people think, which I'm excited about. We have some big-time speed and stolen base potential. So between Kepley and Bass, Madera, he didn't steal as many last year with a back injury. I think he can continue to steal some bases. We put a big emphasis on that. Perry Hargett can steal bases. I think Vanderbrake and Gavin are both really advanced base runners. So when you look at that, Daron, the age factor is the age factor. Every team's different, but you got guys that have played full seasons that we can put in a lineup at really, 10 deep. And then you add in a couple of really good other transfers and freshmen and returners. We feel pretty good about our depth.
Yeah, the depth is one thing that I was going to note, because some really familiar names who feel like they've been there and been steady off the bench for you for a while too. Reese Holbrook and Carter French are also, and they've had really, really relied upon moments where they've come up big as Tar Heels. So you keep listing the names, and it's like, man, okay, maybe there's not as much of a net loss there as
yeah, and that's what makes a team go. We talk about it all the time. Those two guys you just mentioned, Reese Holbrook and Carter French, they are ultimate team guys too. So they're going to push everybody. They look the best they've looked. It makes the guys that may be, quote, starters, but you want guys looking over their shoulder. It just makes you better. It's so misleading to say, oh, I just need to know I'm going to play. Well, that's not life. You have to perform to play. You have to perform to move up in the business world. But those guys make us better. We have other ones that make us better, some other freshmen that are going to push. But it's brought a lot of joy to me to see those guys. Reese been here. This is his 4th season. Carter is, his 3rd, to push each other, to push their teammates, and to be leaders for us. That's very important to have older guys that, yeah, they want to play. Who doesn't want to play? But how they approach every day is so important for everybody.
I think it's a perfect lead in. I want to key in on Jackson and talk about, you mentioned his season last year. You guys have built a program and a culture so that, look, if you're not performing, and just as you just alluded to, if it's just not happening for whatever reason, we got to put the team first and figure out a way that we can make it happen, right? And enter Gavin, who breaks out as a freshman, and it leaves Jackson in this awkward spot, an all ACC player now coming off of the bench. But all indications from you when we spoke about it last year was that he just kind of took it in stride and embraced the role. And he came up big for you guys in Omaha and on the way to Omaha in his limited spots. You say he looks as good as he's ever. How does he sound? Is he like a little fired up? Extra? He's got something extra.
The way, if you could have just seen, he made the choice to come back here with it looking doubtful.
Yeah,
that he would play for us, and he let us all fall by clear. We vote for leaders. I like to see what the team thinks. Then we meet as a staff, and we don't necessarily have to name captains, but if we feel like we have 1 or 2 guys that are, that they deserve that, we'll name them. So we named Jackson Vandenbrake and Jake Knapp our captains again. But it's been, I don't think when I was his age, I could have handled it like he did. So that's a credit to him and the way he was raised. Last year, same thing, unbelievable teammate. We had guys that had played a lot in their career, in Vandenbrake, Castagnozzi, Patrick Alvarez, even Stokely early. They now obviously the culture, they know our standards. So you don't really have a choice, but you do, individually. You can try to hide it, but they really were phenomenal teammates. The feedback, I know being around the game long enough, whether or not they're bought in, and they were bought in. They helped us win. They helped us get to Omaha, and they all had the satisfaction as they continue to get older that they made that right choice. And some of them finished their career, in Omaha. We didn't win it all, but we still finished in Omaha, and none of them have been. So Jackson, yeah, he always plays he's a JUCO kid, wasn't recruited, didn't play on travel teams. He's one of those guys that'll fight you in a good way. We don't want him going after the pitcher again like he did against Gardner Webb. But again, that's part of baseball at times. But he's that guy, and you need those guys. And I just feel we're all just Coach Jackson, he said it best. He told Jackson, he said, I'm just going to hug you every day. I'm just going to give you a quick hug every day, because we're just so thankful that he's here, because it was so close, and thankful the NCAA did the right thing.
Not that other coaching staffs don't do this, but I've caught wind of you guys telling the guys you love them several times over the years. I love that, right? You give them the hugs, and it's again another testament to the program. I've got one more for you, Scott, just to follow up. You mentioned the base running. Now, last year, I know Vance had a green light, the ultimate green light, right? Whenever he wanted to go, he could go. Is there anybody at the top of that pecking order this year? Like, are you gonna give signals to a Jackson Vanderbrake if he just wants to take off? Has anybody earned it yet?
Kane Kepley. I mean, not even close. The guy's I'm excited for him because I don't think people understand what they're about to watch. He is a tough, hard-nosed player, but he's talented. Don't let the size fool you. That's kind of being thrown out the door more and more too in the draft. Has an unbelievable eye at the plate, got power, but can really run the bases. And he will have the green light. Like, I feel like he knows when to shut it down, when not to. Tyson Bass should have the green light right out of the gate. And I would like for Madera. So we have 3 green light guys that they needed to have the green light. And I need to trust him. I should never have to take it off. They're older players, and they know, like, okay, we're down by 3. I'm at first base, and so-and-so with all this power is on deck. We get the next guy on, we're about to tie the game. So you have to trust those guys. And I think the guys like the Vandy, the Gavin, there'll be times when they do have it, depending on the scouting report. And Perry Hargett could become that guy, just as far as pure speed. I think he's a 20, 30 stolen base guy before his career's over here. And that's something that we take a lot of pride in. That's kind of my baby as the head coach, is the base running. But Coach Jackson brings a lot of that as well. He's really good at it. But that's about the only thing now I feel like that I coach, because these guys coach everything else, which is awesome. And I just walk around and watch and talk to the players every day.
I love it. You just reminded me one more thing. So Scott Jackson is on staff now. Does that shake up the in-game responsibilities any? Is he going to be at first or third or wherever? Or is he just going to hang out in the dugout?
Yeah, it does change some responsibilities because you have another person here with great experience, has coached a long time, and also 8 years of head coaching experience. It allowed us to move Jason Howell into that director of pitching performance, analytics, data role, which is very much needed. And he is extremely smart. He understands all that stuff. So him and Coach Gaines work together. Now, Coach Howell can still throw BP, and he's our number 1 on the depth chart. We ranked him the depth chart the other day, BP. He's left-handed, but those 2 guys pretty much handle all the pitching. And Coach Wiersbicki, and he's our hitting coach. You stay out of the way because he knows what the heck he's doing. And Coach Jackson just mentioned yesterday, like, man, he is really good with those guys. But Coach Jackson now coaches the middle. He coaches the middle infielders, and he completely coaches the outfielders. Coach Wiersbicki now the catchers and the corner guys, instead of Coach Weir's doing all the infield. And Coach Jackson's going to coach first base. Thought about him coaching third, but he is our recruiting coordinator. Sometimes you're on the road more than you want to be.
Yeah.
So I let the staff tell me, like, what do you think is best for our team? And they felt like if they'd have told me, hey, Coach Jackson coaching third would have been best, we'd have done it. But we really like having Coach Wiersbicki in the dugout as our hitting coach. And to do that, we don't have a student assistant this year. We had Brandon Riley last year. Coach Jackson will be at first, I'll be at third, which I'm really excited about because we'll have our own system. We feel like we've known each other a long time, all the way back to the Wilmington Sharks in like 1999. So I'm excited about it. We'll have fun. We have fun every day here, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know you guys do. I'm excited to see that. Scott Jackson back coaching the base paths for North Carolina. That's great. And
he's fiery now. I got to keep him in the game. I got to keep his ejections down.
Yeah, see, now you're not a head coach now, so you got to kind of like lay back, right? You got to remind him you're not the guy anymore necessarily.
Yeah, you don't get as much. I used to always joke with umpires as I got older. I was like, "Oh, that's right. I can't even speak to you."
You're right. I love it. You got to, just remind him you are the human shield in the event that the team has a grievance, right? You are the human.
You know what?
shield.
I let them do. These guys, they're adults. Like whatever, I trust them. If they feel like they need to go after and express their opinion, they're more than welcome.
I'm so excited for this team. It's a good veteran presence of guys who, in some cases, are getting another chance, right? Like we talk about Stokely and Knapp, guys who were hurt last year, and Folger. And I'm excited to see it. Excited to see your group, Coach. Appreciate the time as always. And it'll be here very, very soon. I know I will see you. I don't know exactly when, but I will see you soon.
We're excited too. And just thank you for all of y'all at D1 baseball. I mean, y'all have done so much, and I'm watching our regional and super regional, and college baseball is at a peak, and it's going to continue to grow. And it's a big credit to D1 baseball to bring in so much attention to, a sport that deserves the attention. So I'm looking forward to it as well.
Amen. Amen to that. Happy to be a small part of it. Scott, thanks again. We'll catch you soon. All right.
Thank you.